Many people think they can get to their goal in a mental way and at the same time also feeling truly fulfilled within. And for certain things, for certain goals, often minor goals, that's actually possible. Because minor things oftentimes are the things that we already identify with and that are not too difficult to attain for ourselves. The main problem is that those bigger goals, those goals that you don't identify with, those goals are oftentimes very hard to achieve. Because those goals, they represent your biggest desires. And what often happens is that people who chase their goals and their dreams, that they get disappointed. And that they make the experience that whatever they try to accomplish while being in this state of trying to attain their dreams is something that is just not working out. At the same time, they become very pragmatic and they recognize they can actually create and build something within their lives. But the problem is that even if they follow this rational approach and improve their quality of life within the physical world, their soul will always stay in a state that feels sad. Their soul will never be fully fulfilled. Because these dreams, these goals that were actually the hardest challenges for their soul to grow and for their own evolution, those dreams they don't try to tackle. They just go for the things that are easy to attain, or they do things that are actually not their deepest wishes. And they fulfill those things. And at least this gives them a certain sense of satisfaction, but not true fulfillment. What often happens then is that someone attains a worldview that is totally rational. And maybe it is making sense, maybe it is reasonable, and maybe they have a sense of inner clarity. But the main issue for them is that joy can only be accessed in the present moment, and joy can also be only attained when someone goes for the things that are actually very difficult to attain. Because what is value about? Value is about those things that we put in the most effort, and value is also about those things that are the rarest, and therefore those things that most people don't accomplish. Following your dreams takes an enormous amount of courage. It is really intense, it is really tough, because you have to go beyond your current limitations. But what is the nature of those limitations in the first place? Why is it that certain things are more difficult for you to attain than other things? The reason for that is your identity. Your identity is about anything that you value and that you think you already understand. Everything that you already own in some sense. Because logic, causality, and even action are not enough to give you this feeling of that something is actually yours. Because in order to be yours, you have to have that feeling, which is evident in itself. So, because our life is not only about what we do, our life is also about how we feel about those things. So you can attain anything in this world, but you won't feel it if it's just a mental construct, if it's just flashy design, if it's just something that you tell others in order to impress them. All these things are useless. So even if you had a life that had this crazy curriculum and that was absolutely impressive, and even if you feel proud about yourself on a mental level, it might be that you're still not fully satisfied. Because there are always things that you're envious about or that you're jealous about, regarding those things that other people attain and are able to accomplish. Because the truth is this: our envy and our jealousy are actually emotions that show ourselves the path. I, for example, had never a really strong problem with the emotion of envy, because I could always transform this emotion into admiration, because that's the upside of this emotion. Jealousy in certain situations can be a little bit more difficult because it is about attention of other people. But even that you can transform by working on your social skills. So actually those emotions are like a compass, and they guide you toward what you really want. So if you have this impressive life and are still not truly fulfilled and at times feel envy or jealousy, you know that somehow you are actually lying to yourself. Even if you're very rational, and even if you're mentally very strong and a great strategic thinker, and even if you're able to convince other people how impressive your life is, you can't cheat yourself and you can't cheat your soul. So there will always be those things that you didn't go for. And the first thing when it comes to transformation that you have to do is you have to be radically honest. You have to be honest with yourself, and you have to be honest with other people. And this is usually very difficult, because being honest with yourself can be very painful, because you have to actively work on your personal worldview, and you also have to admit mistakes with yourself or regarding yourself. And going outward and admitting a mistake, or dealing with criticism in a constructive way and giving the feedback that there's something that you might think about, or just waiting and thinking before you give a response. This is very difficult, because the ego usually doesn't want to lose its status. More than 2 years ago, I was at a point that was very difficult for me, because I had built up a narrative and the narrative was crumbling. Nothing was making sense anymore, and I wasn't able to defend anything about it. So what I experienced was a huge ego death, because the ego has its pillars that it is placed on and that give it stability and security. And when those things are removed, it tries to find equilibrium, but if it can't, it totally crashes. And this is very intense, and it can really lead to these phenomena like a Kundalini awakening. So it can lead to a state or to a process in which your own nervous system is so overloaded, because the ego is in so much pain and fear, that you have to make new decisions and you have to reinvent yourself in a totally new way. But at the same time, it is very important to not build up another false narrative that secures the first one, because any story can easily get covered up by another story. And that's often the case in the spiritual scene, when someone who goes through a very strong hardship then learns about those things, and the ego then tries to build a new structure that saves their reputation, or the old structure. And that's why those people, maybe even if they are able to deceive others, they can't fool themselves entirely. And this is also the reason why so many people who call themselves spiritual, afterwards, sometimes even after many years, are involved in so many scandals. The reason is not that they had no, the reason is not that they had no expertise necessarily on a mental level, but the reason is that on an embodied emotional level, they actually never embodied that state that they claimed to embody. So their enlightenment was actually never fully present, never fully rooted and grounded in presence. It was more something like self-distraction or a state of apathy. And that's also what happens when you meditate in a wrong way. So meditation is also very important to be done in a way that maybe initially enables you to break out of your ego and your own narrative, but then in a way that also again includes your body to embody the emotion that you process again and to ground and anchor yourself. And in any case, to complete the loop, you have to see that in this case, again, honesty is very important. Honesty is important when you enter this process, and honesty is also important when you come out of this process. And this is not only true for any enlightenment process, this is also true for any kind of transformation that you want to go through. Anything that you want to achieve is connected with a certain emotional state. And before you are able to integrate that emotional state, you are not able to fully resonate and feel that thing. So it will always feel foreign. And in order to achieve this, to get this fulfillment and also attain your goals in a way that is way more easy, what you should really do is be radically honest and also maintain that honesty. And after you went through this process, share your journey and also share those things that might feel uncomfortable to share. Because privacy is an important thing if it is about protecting others and about protecting yourself and your physical existence. But honesty is even more important, or it is important regarding everything that you can share, because transparency ultimately is the highest virtue, because it enables you to connect to a state of authenticity and therefore to really feel as yourself in any situation that you might get in. In any situation, you are able to connect to your true nature, and you don't have to switch roles depending on the situation that you are in. In other words, your ego is connected to a certain set of values that you currently embody and to certain emotions that you already embody. But in order to expand, you need to be honest in order to break that shell that limits you. And when you do so, you are able to go through a radical process of transformation until you reached the goal that you wanted to achieve. And then it is also important to be honest again in order to maintain that in an authentic, embodied way. So I really hope this could help you and you found some inspiration, and you know now that depending on what you want to achieve, probably you should pay the price, probably you should be honest, and if you do so, what do you have to lose? And at the other hand, you have to win everything. So yeah, if you like this video, just give it a thumbs up and also hit the subscribe button to support me and this channel. Thank you.